A log planter can be an adorable way to spruce up your garden. They look great, they blend in with the landscape, and unless you're using rot-resistant wood, they will eventually break down and fertilize the soil. My name's Greg, and in this video, I'd like to show you my process of getting all of these made and talk about various other methods as well. Feel free to skip around in the video with the timestamps below, and let's get to it. So there are many ways to go about cutting out a planting hole in a log like this. Probably one of the fastest ways would be with a chainsaw, which would also be one of the most dangerous ways to do it as well. But if you happen to be a chainsaw wizard and you like making life-size grizzly bear sculptures on the weekend, then something like this may take you 15 minutes tops. Or if you happen to have a whole workshop full of woodworking tools, then you probably already know what you're doing. You don't need to watch this video, but thanks for watching anyway. Otherwise, there are some other ways to get this job done using more common and more affordable tools. I don't have a chainsaw and I have zero experience using one, so I decided to try out some other methods using the tools that I do have so I can form my own opinions, share what I learned, and hopefully help you get one of these made for your own garden. So let's take a look at each one of those methods in more detail. Be sure to use proper safety equipment and follow recommended safety guidelines. So aside from the previously mentioned chainsaw or fancy tool workshop, one of the best tools you can use for this is a drill. And I do recommend a corded drill rather than a cordless because the corded drill will give you consistent power. It can definitely take some time to drill out all of the wood to make a planter out of this. So with the cordless, you might run out of power halfway through, and if you don't have a backup battery, then you'll have to wait to recharge it. So this could be more efficient for you. They are generally cheaper than the cordless drills, and they often come with a handle like this, which is great to give you some more leverage to drill deep down into the wood. A drill is great because there is a wide variety of different drill bits that you can use with it. I started out using the largest wood drilling bit that I had, which as you can see is not very large. This is just a 1/2 inch, so anything bigger than this would make the job easier for you. But I started by drilling straight down and at angles and working around different directions to really grind up the wood into sawdust, and I made sure to set aside all of the sawdust and wood chips from these logs so that I could spread that out in the garden pathways and try to keep the weeds down. So then I switched to what's called a spade or paddle bit, and this worked really well to rip out some bigger chunks from the holes that I had already drilled. And you can see that I did wind up breaking off the tips from the 2 largest paddle bits that I had, and just keep that in mind that this kind of drilling is pretty rough on a bit like this, so it may not be the best. Something better would actually be a Forstner bit, and I don't have any of these, but I can imagine that they would work really well in this situation. So after about an hour and a half of drilling, this was the end result. And yes, you heard me correctly, an hour and a half of drilling for one log. So yeah, it can take some time to make one of these if you don't have the luxury of a chainsaw, but at least it's a good workout for your forearms, which I could definitely use. But once you get this all drilled out, you could just leave it as is, or if you can spend a little bit extra time going around the inside with a hammer and chisel to clean it up and maximize that growing space. So here's an example of a finished product, and we have a strobilanthus growing in here. I had never seen these before, but it has this beautiful purple coloring and it looks amazing. So I'm sure some of you are wondering about drainage for these, and I decided not to add any drainage holes to these planters because the wood readily soaks up water, unlike a plastic or ceramic pot. If you want to add drainage holes, that's totally up to you, but I don't have a drill bit that was long enough to get all the way through the bottom anyway, even if I wanted to. So my best educated guess is that drainage is not going to be necessary in this case. We've had these plants growing in here for about 3 weeks already. We've had almost daily rainfall, and soil is draining just fine, and the plants look quite healthy. So I'm pretty confident that it is not going to be an issue here. So before I show you the rest of the finished planters, I would also like to talk about a few other methods that you can use to cut out the planting hole. So another great power tool to use for this project could be an angle grinder. And I don't currently have one of these, but I've used them before. Basically, you have a spinning wheel at the end of a handle, and like a drill, there are all different kinds of wheels that you could use for different purposes. And you're not just limited to cutting with the edge of the wheel, you can use the sides of it to grind things down, hence the name. So that could work well for this. You might have a bit of trouble as you get further down into it. You might not get all the way down in there, depending on the size of the log that you're trying to cut into. So you might need to switch to using another tool to finish the job, but if you have a grinder, it might be worth a try. A rotary tool could also work pretty well for this, though they are usually meant for doing more fine detail work than any heavy-duty cutting. But there are dozens of different attachments that you can get for these. You can grind with it, you can cut with it. They make a slightly larger wood cutting wheel than just this basic cutting wheel, but I was too cheap to try that out. So with the right attachments, it could do a pretty good job, but a lot of those attachments are pretty small, so it might take you a while to cut out a hole that big. So probably one of the coolest and at the same time hottest methods for making a log planter is to use hot coals to burn out the wood. Now this is also one of the most potentially dangerous and time-consuming methods, but if you want to try doing it without using any power tools, then this could be the way to go. Now, I decided to put a hole in the middle first to speed the process up a bit, but you can just lay the coals directly on the surface. And the key to doing this is keeping those coals red hot at all times so that they burn quickly. And to do this, you need to keep a steady flow of air on those coals. You can use a hair dryer, or if you want to go completely powerless, you can try using a hollow reed or straw to blow on it. And this way it'll keep your face away from the intense heat and the ash and sparks blowing around. Now there is also the risk of hyperventilating if you're trying to blow on it yourself, so if you're worried about that at all, a hair dryer would be best. So as this burns outward, you'll need something to scrape away the wood as it ashes over. And eventually you'll have a nice bowl shape, but this is probably not going to be deep enough for most plants, so you may need to do that whole process again just to get further down into the wood. Because of the way fire and heat works, it does a better job of burning outward rather than down. So this method definitely requires some patience, and you have to be very careful using fire, but in the end, it is pretty satisfying knowing that you were able to make one of these planters using some primitive techniques. So we're finally ready to plant something in our new log planter, and this is really no different from standard container gardening. Just pick out your plant or plants, grab your favorite potting mix, make sure your plants go in at the same depth they were in the pots, give them a drink, and you're done. So you can plant just about whatever you want in a log like this, just be sure to make the hole big enough to accommodate what you want to grow. So here are all 6 of them finished, and I am really happy with how those came out. I think they look pretty awesome, and it's just great to add some color into this part of the garden here where we're still waiting for most things to bloom. The comfrey has been blooming, and we're getting some sage flowers now too. But let's just do a quick little tour around here. You did already see the strobilanthus. I really love that one. That is a pretty amazing color. So that seems like it's starting to spread out a bit already. And then we've got some lobelia, which is totally trying to cover the celosia in the front. We've got 3 of those neat little flame top flowers on those. And then there's a type of coleus with some alyssum kind of spilling over the side. And then over here we've got some more celosia, some different colors, some geraniums, smell great. There's a perennial sedum here. This is just starting to flower out. There should be some nice bright orange red flowers on that, and I hope that keeps doing well over the years. And then there's some marigolds and some Mexican heather with that. So, you know, I don't have much experience doing different flower arrangements in containers like this, so I'm sure there are definitely some better options I could have chosen and some different aesthetics, but I for one am pretty pleased with how this turned out. So definitely adds some color, makes it look more like a garden around here. So thank you very much for watching. Hopefully this video was helpful to you if you were trying to make log planters for your own garden. If so, please give the video a thumbs up and share it around with your friends, and be sure to subscribe for more garden projects like this. I'll see you next time.